used this book to make this bodice pattern, and I wanted to give you a review. Hello, it's Icy. I am here with a review of this book. This is Winifred Aldrich's 6th edition metric pattern cutting for women's wear. I used this book to make this mock-up, or this muslin, for the various vest patterns I'm planning to make. And I wanted to give you a review in a specific video about this book. You can certainly check the links for any of the other previous videos where I use this. Now, I've only made the bodice pattern out of this, but I did want to give the impressions. So, it is a metric pattern cutting book, and as I am in Australia and we don't use inches, I did want to get a book that was using the metric system. I suspect even if you live somewhere that does use inches, this might be easier because it's a lot easier to measure out 4.5 centimeters rather than, I don't even know, 1 inch and 3/8 or something. Perhaps if you're used to it, it's fine. So a couple of things. This is the 6th edition, which means that the first edition of this book was in, no idea, 1988. Now, I just want to say, and you can tell it's from the 80s. So there are a bunch of patterns in here. So it has a bunch of defaults, so bodice, pants, jackets, a whole heap of basic stuff. And then additionally to each of those basic muslins that it gives you instructions of how to draft, it then has a bunch of variations of what you can do to the pattern. All of those are mostly looking straight from the 80s, like yoked necks, gathers, the whole thing. That's fine. But one thing I do recommend that you keep in mind if you're using this book is it appears to include the ease in the draft. This is drafting you a pattern. It's not drafting you a sloper. So one thing I would say is if you want a sloper out of this, something that fits your body like a second skin, which is what I wanted, because I wanted to take that and then make things from that. And for that matter, I like all of my clothes close fitting anyway. If I want to add ease, I want to add my own. You will need to take the ease out. The other thing is in the instructions of how to make this, it's not clear what additions are the ease, if that makes sense. So it's not a super easy process of going, oh, this number is the ease, so I just won't add this number. Perhaps you could guess at it, but what I would suggest is when you are drawing up the pattern, you draw it up and then do like a sanity measurement, like measure your bust or take your bust measurement again, lay it out on the pattern and see where it goes. So that's one thing. The other great thing about this book is it does actually have a full methodology for doing your own individual measurements and then drafting a pattern from those. And for me, that worked really pretty well, actually. So I was able to use the table it has at the back of the book. There's a whole little chapter on it. Draw on my measurements, take my measurements, and then take those and then make a pattern from it. And once I took out the additional ease and corrected the waistline, that was something else. I measured my waistline too high, I think. But once I took out the additional ease, I actually only needed 2 mock-ups. So the original mock-up where I went, oh, that's just weird and wrong. And then the second mock-up with a series of small tweaks to actually get something that, as you can see, fits really well, even with, you know, my own particular weird body combination, sticky out bits, front and back. So the process for drawing up the patterns from scratch is actually pretty good. I found it quite logical. The methodology is along the lines of start at point A and then draw across X number of centimeters to get point B, drop down X number of centimeters to get the top of the shoulder. From there, drop down X centimeters to get the apex, drop down X centimeters to get the waistline, that kind of methodology. So it's actually, if you're following it all step by step, it's actually quite good because it's all quite well laid out. You do want a big piece of paper. You might need to stick several bits together. You do want a long ruler is one thing I would recommend, maybe even two. And you do want something that allows you to make right angles. You don't need a French curve. It can make things easier. But I would say in essence, what you really need is a long straight edge, an accurate ruler, and something that you can use to make an accurate right angle. And from there, it wasn't too hard. The one thing, that I found was I did the corset thing of putting a tape around my waist and then, moving back and forth to get it so it would sit at my normal waist measurement. Well, sorry, smallest part. What that resulted in was a waist line that was probably too high on the pattern, or I made a mistake with measuring out. That's entirely possible. So I would recommend that after you draw up all your bits and pieces, that you do a sanity check of putting a tape measure on the piece of paper from the back of the neck to the back of the waist, etc., and making sure all those lengths are correct. One other thing in the pattern, and you can actually see it on the front here. So the front bodice has the seam lines that come here on the bust. You can still see it on this particular pattern, this mock-up, it's still here. On my final sort of cardboard pattern that I'm saving to use for all other things, I actually walked that so it went out to the side. It does teach you in here how to walk your darts, so how to move it from here to like the side or into the armhole, or it does actually tell you how to do these things, so that's certainly good. The one other thing I would say about the bodice, the back bodice, you can actually see here as well, it does actually have this tiny little dart at the back bodice. I walked that out because I don't think I want that. I suspect that might be an 80s leftover. But for example, if you did actually have somewhat of a rounded back, maybe you want to leave that in. But for my purposes, no, I did need to, I wanted that out basically. I didn't want like a little back dart in there. So I closed that up and modified the pattern to get rid of it. So in general, I am, as you can see, this works really nicely. There's no, so I took this, I basically made a cardboard sloper pattern out of this. I did make the pattern so it goes down to the hips, sort of mid-hip, and I've got all the lines marked on, so for top hip and waist as well, so I can adjust how long the thing is that I want to cut out. The other thing I did with the final sloper is on the cardboard. For the darts, what I've got is the long and the side darts. I've literally got the cardboard and I've got a gap cut out. Actually, I'll show you, one sec. This is probably easier. Should have grabbed these in the first place. Okay, so this is the front piece. So you can see the darts are very shallow, sort of down the front here, and that's because it's not that curvy at the front. Or maybe, perhaps it curves the wrong way at the front, shall we say that? And the V. This means when I'm taking this pattern and then retracing it onto a piece of paper to actually cut out to modify for a different vest or a different bodice, I can actually really accurately transfer all of these lines, and there's a little hole, a little cross for the apex as well, so I can mark that in if I need to change the dots, if I need to change the seams. This is the back one, and as you can see, there's like a really dramatic dart in the back, and that is because as you can see, there's some natural drama going on back there. So, yeah, pretty much all the clothes I have ever bought or made, for that matter, I have needed to add additional darts down the back. So it's really nice that I actually have a pattern piece now that has how much I need to change that built in. So, in summary, would I recommend you get this book? Yeah, it was really good. I think it was a fantastic book. Price-wise, it wasn't too bad. I'm not anytime soon, but I am looking forward to testing the pant pattern, actually. The skirts, I probably won't really worry about drawing up because 90% of my skirts I wear a stretch anyway. However, the pants, I have terrible trouble finding pants that are in any way flattering to me. Like, truly, 90% of pants look terrible on me. And it's basically because I have a rounded tummy. So they all either overly emphasize that or they sit weird. I also have the curvy back is a problem, so a lot of pants don't go up my waist high enough. So at some later stage, I am absolutely going to follow the instructions in here to make a pant sloper as well, because that is something that would actually be amazing. And I have a penchant for like really wide-legged kind of palazzo style pants, and they are absolutely not in fashion right now. So maybe I could make my own. It is a thought. But if you've tried this book and you have thoughts, let me know in the comments below. If you end up getting this book to try, let me know how you go. I'd be curious to see, does it work for you? Is it good? Is it bad? Did you have problems? Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Feel free to subscribe here on YouTube if you have not. I appreciate it. You can also find me in all the other places on the internet as Hullo, it's Icy with a U, and I would love to see you in those places. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.